This is going to be a real quick video today. I was reflecting upon one of the historic reasons why silver emerged as a parallel money alongside gold. Gold was not a popular medium of exchange hundreds of years ago for common everyday transactions. Because it was so rare, valuable, and compact, using it for day-to-day purchases would lead to potentially very large losses in value. Imagine, if you would, bringing gold to a local merchant and trying to buy a few yards of cloth or a few chickens or a sack of milled flour, for example. You might negotiate a price in a particular weight of gold and then would have to proceed to cut an appropriate weight of gold off whatever piece of gold you had. Even if it was a gold coin, you would probably end up generating quite a few shavings, many of which would be lost, before arriving at the right amount. Even then, the accuracy of the scale that was used might be a little off, in which case the amount of gold tendered might be larger in value than what was negotiated. Gold was much better suited for transporting large amounts of wealth over great distances, whether by horseback or by ship. Its desirability largely came from this property. It truly was the money of kings. Silver was much better suited for smaller transactions because it was easier to do transactions of the right value. Being half as dense as gold, and at the same time 1/16th the value by weight, made silver much more cumbersome to transport, but much more convenient in terms of tendering the correct value for the items purchased. Even the large Spanish dollars could be easily cut down to form very convenient amounts for transactions. In fact, the term pieces of 8 originated by the way that these coins were sometimes cut in half, and then in half again, and in half once more until 8 chunks of silver were obtained, which were nearly identical in weight. Subdividing coins in this way was quite easy. As a consequence of this practice being so easy and accepted, the U.S. maintained its practice of producing quarters and halves out of silver even when Thomas Jefferson proposed that the U.S. adopt a decimal-based system of currency. As the two metals rose to the top of the stack for serving an intermediary role in transactions, they both fulfilled very different functions. Gold tended to be used more as a power money because of its utility as a highly desired store of value. Silver tended to be used more for circulating money because of its ability to be used with more ease and precision, and thus it would lose less of its value when it was accumulated as savings and then disaccumulated for spending. Silver was actually better suited for saving for the common person because it could be accumulated and spent in small amounts. We can see this phenomena at work if we take a look at the prices of various gold and silver coins and bars. Gold tends to be more cumbersome to mint or stamp very small amounts, and thus its price tends to rise more steeply as quantity is decreased. This weekend I looked into the prices of various gold and silver items of various weights. I wanted to put together a picture of how each metal performs when it comes to allowing the small saver to gradually accumulate and spend from a hoard of various precious metal items. I took into account the spread for each item. In other words, the difference between the cost of obtaining one item at a time compared against what could be obtained when selling that same item back one at a time. This is the significance of the left axis on this chart. To differentiate the size of each purchase, I normalized each item against the value that could be obtained by selling a single American silver eagle. Thus, the silver American eagle was treated as 1 unit of value. To make this a little easier to understand, consider the American Gold Eagle 1-ounce coin. This coin can currently be sold for about 71 times what the silver American Eagle can be sold for individually, and so the American Gold Eagle, at least at current spot prices, represents 71 units of value and shows up against the bottom axis at 71. Various other items are shown on this plot as points. The coins are shown as circles. Generic bars are shown as squares. I did not include the impact of taxes just to keep the treatment simple, but anyone who has an interest in doing so can make adjustments fairly easily. Now, I also included some dashed and solid lines so that you could easily differentiate the trends in prices of the various items. Now, it's interesting when we compare silver against gold and see that the slope of silver's line is much more shallow than that of gold. Just as could be expected from our discussion on divisibility, it appears that silver in smaller quantities does not have much more of a spread than silver in larger quantities. If the premiums on silver were smaller than they are now, then silver would actually be much more suitable for savings for the common person, because a person could accumulate and sell smaller quantities without there being much of a penalty. As it stands, though, once a person starts engaging in transactions greater than about 5 ounces of silver in value, gold has the lower transactional spread. Still, whether a person is saving in gold or silver, the transaction spreads are very punishing for anything less than half an ounce of gold at a time. Considering many states charge sales tax on metal purchases less than $500 or $1,000 at a time, we can see that the deck is really stacked against the small saver unless he or she is willing to save in currency until a point is reached where larger purchases can be made. Reflecting on this some more, I think that while the U.S. government did a great thing by passing the Gold Bullion Coin and Liberty Coin Acts and minting gold and silver coins for purchase, they did not go nearly far enough to level the playing field for those who wish to save outside of the banking system. Before 1965, the U.S. government minted silver coin, and before 1934, they minted gold coin, and the government itself bore the expense. In fact, this is what many governments did for their citizens. The government itself bore the cost of minting precious metal coins at minimal taxpayer expense. This had the effect of eliminating the spread between bid and ask for the metals. The precious metal saver could accumulate and spend large or small amounts without the fear of losing value. That is, there would be no fear of losing value so long as the coins were held outside of the banking system. Imagine going back in time to where there would be no cost penalty for accumulating silver $1 at a time, a $half at a time, or even a dime at a time. All of the points in this graph would be at the same value, 0. A person, rich or poor, could save outside of the banking system penalty-free. If we really want to wrestle control back from the banking system, the way to achieve this goal is to ask Congress to fund the mint to coin gold and silver at taxpayer expense, as opposed to treating the mint as a profit center. As taxpaying citizens, I think that's our right. And while we're at it, we can ask the government to eliminate the capital gains tax on metal sales. This would, in my opinion, more than anything else, restore our monetary freedom. It would certainly be a better use of taxpayer money than just about any other that I can think of.